How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another Marvel Snap video. We have two new cards hitting Marvel Snap on the same day. I don't think that's ever happened. Maybe back in beta, maybe I'm forgetting something from last year, but it hasn't happened in a long time. So two new cards. We have the season pass card Skaar and the spotlight cash card Caiera coming out today. I have 4 decks for you guys today. 3 of them are Skaar decks, 2 of them are Caiera decks, so one of the decks overlaps and uses both of them. But before we go over them, let's go over the 2 cards if you haven't seen them yet. Skaar is a 6 cost 11 power that costs 2 less for each of your cards that has 10 or more power. So you can theoretically get him to 0 cost. I think that's going to be a lot harder to do. So I think the sweet spot is to get him down to 2 if possible. So we're going to go over how we're going to do that. Next up, we have Caiera, and she is a 3 cost 4 power with ongoing. Your 1 and 6 cost cards can't be destroyed. I think you kind of have to decide which way you want to use her. If you're going to use her in your big things deck where she's protecting your 6 drops, or in like a zoo deck where she's protecting your 1 drops. So pretty versatile. I don't know how good she is going to be, but I think just her presence in the game and her threat to keep things like Killmonger in check are just fantastic, and she needs to be here. So let's go over the 4 decks. Don't want to waste your guys' time. Let's do this quickly. First up, we have Darkhawk Annihilus. This is actually the first deck that came to mind, trying to use Darkhawk and Sentry to get Skaar's cost as low as possible. This is from Glazer over the Snap Judgment podcast. I use a lot of the decks that he brings up, that he finds, and I thought this was a fantastic shell to work with. So the idea here is to play Zabu on turn 2, make your 4 drops cost 1 less. Obviously, you can play Darkhawk on 3 or Sentry on 3. Again, play Darkhawk or Sentry on 4. Play Annihilus on 5 to send Sentry's -10 power over. And then Skaar ideally will be a 2 cost. So on turn 6, you could play Skaar and another 4 drop. If you have Zabu out, then you'll be able to play a 4 drop and one of your 1 drops, maybe the demon that comes out of Hood. So that's kind of the idea of this deck. It's more so just like a good cards deck that uses Annihilus. Already Annihilus Darkhawk decks out there, so this is just slotting Skaar into that archetype and trying to get use out of him. Again, this was the first thing that popped into my head that he would fit into, so I'm hoping he improves this deck. If he doesn't, then the original deck is just going to be the go-to for this archetype. All of that is just going to depend on how consistently you can get Skaar down to 2 cost, because if he's floating at 4 cost, I don't think this deck is going to be very good. Because all your other 4 drops are going to cost 3, he's still going to cost 4. You're not going to be able to play 2 cards on turn 6. So we'll see. This is what I'm going to try first. Again, super excited about this one. The next deck, though, is what I am most excited to try. It's a Moon Girl She-Hulk deck with Skaar slotted in. And the reason why I really like this shell is I've always loved the Moon Girl She-Hulk archetype and the ability to drop a bunch of power on turn 6 with multiple She-Hulks. And this lets you use She-Hulk in a way that isn't that original way of using her. The original way you use her is to skip turn 5, copy her with Moon Girl on turn 4, skip turn 5, and then she will cost 1 cost on turn 6, and you can play 2 of her. That's really the only way that people used her. However, with Skaar in the game, you may want to skip earlier turns with her. One of the play lines is skipping turn 4, and then on turn 5 you play Darkhawk and She-Hulk, and then that makes your Skaar cost 2 by turn 6. If you don't draw Zabu, maybe you have the ability to skip turn 3, play her on turn 4 for 3 with another 1 drop. On turn 5, play, say, the Darkhawk, and then again Skaar is going to cost 2, and you can play Skaar with, say, the Miss Marvel. And it really just lets you be a little bit more flexible with this deck. I think with the Moon Girl She-Hulk decks, it was very kind of one-track mind. If I can get my She-Hulk copied, that's what I'm using She-Hulk for. If not, then I'm going to play my big Hulk and play other cards. And I think Skaar gives you that versatility to use her in other ways. Other play lines here, obviously you're playing Zabu on turn 2, but if you can get Darkhawk on turn 3, you can copy the Darkhawk with Mystique. If you don't have, say, your She-Hulk in hand or another way to get 10 power, that will make your Skaar cost 2 as well. And then, of course, the kind of the main play line I think is going to be most common is Zabu on 2, Darkhawk on 3, Moon Girl on 4 to try to copy your She-Hulk. You can skip turn 5 like you would before, and then you can play double She-Hulk and Skaar on turn 6. And so again, the versatility of this deck and the ability to use She-Hulk in ways that we didn't really use her before just really gets me excited. I'm really excited to try this. By the way, I don't think I mentioned it, this deck is by Zombies. You can see it on the screen here. He makes fantastic decks as well. Go check out his channel. But I was really excited to try to make this shell. And when I go and try to make these decks, I check if anybody else has made something similar. Zombies had already. And so, yeah, go check out his channel. Next up, we have Hela Skaar. This is, I mean, technically my version of the deck, but it's not that far off from the current Hela Lockjaw list. It's a Hela Lockjaw list. However, it's using Skaar instead of Giganto. And this is the first deck we're going to see with Caiera in there. I don't know if she's 100% necessary, but she does offer some protection for, say, your Black Knight and for all of the 6 drops that hopefully you'll have out on the last turn. Skaar replacing Giganto adds flexibility to the deck. Skaar lets you play Skaar in any of the locations if you need to play it. In a situation where you were going to play Giganto, where you can only play him left, now you can play Skaar in any of the locations. If you get a few of these big power cards out, Skaar can be cheaper, and you can play something like Skaar Ghost Rider on turn 6. And so it just adds a little bit more flexibility to the deck, so it's not just all in on trying to get Hela out. Some of the swaps you can consider with this deck, if you don't want to play Jubilee, you can consider swapping in Dracula. I kind of like the Jubilee into the Lockjaw lane though. And then also, if you don't like Jubilee or you don't like Caiera, you can play Blob instead. Blob has the ability to get really big in this deck. I'm sure he'll slot in perfectly. But I wanted to make room for Jubilee. I wanted to make room for Caiera and give both of those cards a try. Lastly, the last deck that we have is by Safety Blade. Zoo. Haven't been able to play Zoo. There's a Dazzler bundle that is probably out right now, actually. I think it's in the shop, the Bubblegum Pop bundle. I most likely picked it up. I haven't picked it up yet, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to buy it because it is really good value. But the ability to play Dazzler, have to take advantage of it. And of course, this is using the bottom half of Caiera, trying to protect your 1-drops. The idea of this deck, if you haven't played Zoo before, is just to fill up all of the lanes. Play a bunch of cards, play a bunch of 1-drops, protect them with Caiera. You can try to run armor instead of Bishop if you'd like here, but I think you're going to need the stats with Bishop. So play a bunch of 1-drops, turn 1 and 2. Turn 3, probably Shauna, maybe Caiera, depending on what you're playing against. Turn 4, you're looking to play Kazar. Turn 5, Blue Marvel. Turn 6, more 1-drops, another 3-drop, whatever it is. You're just trying to vomit everything that you have on the board, or everything that you have on in your hand onto the board. Try to get as many stats as possible. The reason why Zoo was a not so good before, 1, it is limited on how many stats it can get, but 2, the threat of Killmonger in the meta was just too big. And so Caiera serves 2 purposes here. 1, she just protects your 1-drops. Obviously, she's just a good counter card to Killmonger. But 2, just her presence in the game is going to reduce the play rate of Killmonger, and that could reduce it enough that Zoo climbs up a bit into the meta if it can get enough power out. Climbs up into the meta and performs better than it has in the past. Killmonger right now is a really strong card, and having Caiera in there to just in the game in general to threaten a counter to him is fantastic, and I think it's really healthy for the game. And so those are my decks for day 1 of Skaar and Caiera. Again, I'm most excited for this this She-Hulk deck. I love She-Hulk archetypes, and I'm super excited for this one. Go check out all the creators. I'll have their links in the description. All the creators in here: Glazer, Zombies, and Safety Blade. I do day 1 deck videos for all the new cards coming out to Marvel Snap. I do bundle breakdowns. I just do regular deck videos. So if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing. And as usual, if you love all things Marvel Snap, make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell. I'll see you in the next one.